All right, guys, for today, we are actually looking at purchasing a home and all of like the fees and everything that goes along with it. Because you don't pay enough in your monthly payments over your 15 or 30 years for it, but you pay a lot of fees when you start, like to actually get the loan. Yay!
See, this is the only nice thing about inheritance. That's it.
True. All right, so what will that American dream cost you, right? American dream, to own your own home, right? Yeah, all this goes into all of your project too. All right, guys, so one of the biggest concerns for a prospective homeowner is the cost in both the immediate and the distant future. All right, we know the distant future, like those monthly payments, escrow, all that stuff. But it falls into two categories. So costs that occur on a regular basis. So that's not immediate. But like your mortgage payment, insurance, taxes. So with escrow, those are called recurring costs because they keep occurring every single month, right? You keep paying it. Well, for the 15 or 30 years of your loan. Until it's paid off, those happen every single month. Well, you still should pay taxes and insurance on your home. Guys, I love to talk about all this stuff, but when all of you talk at once, it doesn't work. Yeah. All right, and then one-time cost, those are referred to as non-recurring because they do not happen over and over. So moving cost and many of the costs at closing are non-recurring. Do you guys know what closing is? Okay, Elena? Yeah, it's when you close. I like the way you worded that. You close the deal on it, right? You're signing all that official paperwork. You're changing hands, keys, this, that, and the other, and it's official. The house is yours. Do you guys remember does that happen like as soon as you put an offer on the house? How long do they usually give you? Usually 30 days. Sometimes you can make it 60 or 90 depending on like whatever you agree to with the other people. Yeah.
Now, quick question.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Did you have to convince the people who bought your house to the items that were supposed to permanently stay there, or no?
That all gets written in when you make an offer on the house. So when you make an offer on the house, let's say you walk through, like when we bought our house, for example, there was a pool table in the basement. And it was written into the agreement that the pool table would stay with the house. We didn't want it. It took up the entire basement space. It's my workout space. The pool table was in the way. So, but they didn't want to, you know why they didn't want to take it? It was in the basement. To get it out of there, we had to take it apart. So, but it gets written into like the actual contract, stuff that's going to be left at the house. How do you figure a mirror as a permanent part of the wall? I doubt it was. Even if it's like anchored onto the wall, it's still their property. Unless that was written in, they have every right to do that. Yeah. Yeah. We gave it away to friends of ours. Sorry. Yeah, we like gave it away. All right. So the meeting attended by the buyer, the seller, your attorneys, and a representative of the lending institution or the bank, that is called your closing. So the official sale takes place at that meeting. The buyer is responsible for paying closing costs, which we're going to talk about next. Okay, next slide. I will tell you guys, like when we closed, we officially signed all of our paperwork at a separate time from the people who sold us the house. They just had, they had their lawyer come in. They had moved to Florida. So they had their lawyer come in and sign all the paperwork earlier, and then we came in, when we were available with the person just at the title office. And she just sat there and the person from the bank who we got our loan from, and they just went ahead and signed all the paperwork. So we did not actually meet the people we were buying the house from. They'd already moved to Florida, and we're not coming back for that. Oh, it's funny. All right, so earnest money or a good faith deposit is the money paid to the seller by an interested buyer to show that the buyer is serious about buying the house. And I think we might have mentioned it in this, was either this class or my other class, we mentioned this earlier. But this is like when you want to put in an offer on the house, and if they're going to accept your offer, then you have to give them earnest money. Like for us, when we did it, I think it was $2,000. I wrote a check for $2,000, and they just held my check. They didn't actually cash it at that time. But if I had backed out of the deal, I would have lost that money. Okay, so it's like good faith money. It's you're saying, yes, I'm going to buy the house, unless the, inspection goes bad or something, I am signed in for this. But if I back out, that money I've given the check, they will then cash that and keep it. Does that make sense? Okay. But that money then, since we bought the house, that money just went towards like our closing costs and all of that stuff. So it's not like it was just extra money that I was out. It was just like kind of like a deposit, saying like, hey, I'm putting my hold on this, I'm going to buy this. Then you would get that back. If you backed out because the inspection went poorly, you have that right to back out, and then you'd get that money back. Yeah, because you definitely want those inspections to make sure something's not seriously wrong with the house. Right, that would be bad. All right, and then fees paid to the attorney fees, should be an easy vocab word for you. Fees paid to the attorney in return for representation at the meeting. Even if they don't go to the meeting, the attorney does a lot of work for you, on their end. And if you don't have an attorney, I don't have an attorney, our bank has one that works with them, and they just have their attorney for the bank does all of the work for you, making sure that the house is, doesn't have like taxes backed up for like 10 years that no one's paid or things like that. Okay, so they like do all that legwork to make sure the house is okay, everything's in good standing order for you to have that. Again, I don't have an attorney. The bank attorney did it for us. Yeah, so I don't have an attorney. All right, you have origination fees. And this fee is money paid to the lending institution or to the bank for the paperwork involved in the loan application process. Holy crap, you will sign your name and initial everything so you're blue in the face. It is insane. You're signing your life away. That's what it feels like. But there's a lot of paperwork that goes to everything, so you have to pay a fee to the bank to do all of that for you. It gets all built in there, honestly, you don't even notice it. Title is the legal claim of property ownership. It is common practice that before property can change hands, a title search is conducted. And this is, again, that attorney's going to do this for you. Again, my attorney for the bank did it. I never even talked to the person. They just made sure that the title was clear. Okay, it's used to make sure that the seller does actually hold the title to the property being sold. You don't want to be paying someone like $150,000 for a house and come to find out that they're not the actual owner of that house. Because then they've just gotten away with all your money and you legally don't own that house. It can happen.
It's like, sweet, all right, coming next week. All right, yeah. And the owner showed up about a week later. Oh, this is my house.
Yep, I look. So that's why paying that attorney fee, it's a good idea. You want to make sure that you're actually buying the house legally and getting all the paperwork put in your name. All right. Points are extra fees. These are optional. Okay, I will tell you right now, when we bought ours, we did do points. Points is the word, but points are extra fees. I just, made a complete sentence out of it. They're extra fees charged by the bank for the use of their money. Now, the reason you do this, because each point is equivalent to 1% of the loan. There's two types that you can do this. So if you're like, why am I paying them extra money? So it'd be 1% of however much you're borrowing. But there are origination points. They're collected from the buyer as a means of paying for the loan application process. Now here is the ones that we purchased, discount points. Points that reduce the interest rate of the loan. They generally lower the interest rate by 0.25% on a fixed rate mortgage and 0.375 on an adjustable rate mortgage. These percentages may vary depending on the bank. But what you're doing is you're paying extra money to lower your interest rate. And we've seen how an interest rate over 30 years can have a huge effect on how much you pay in interest. So for us, it was worth it. We paid extra for the points to lower our interest rate because we made up that difference that I paid in points like within the first 5 years of paying on the loan. So we made that money back. So at that point, then I'm just saving money the rest of the way. All right, next one. Prepaid interest. Mortgage interest is not paid like rent. Okay, so you got to stop and think how rent is paid. How is rent paid? So, like when you first move into a place, what do you have to pay usually? Well, besides deposit, you usually pay first month's rent, right? You pay rent ahead of the time you live there. So, like, I'm going to move into an apartment. I'm going to pay for the first month the day I move in, right? So it's paid ahead of time. Interest is not paid that way on a mortgage. Mortgage interest is paid. The word is arrears. Where's your arrear? Where is it located? It's behind you. Yeah, arrears. It's behind you. He did, his booty. That's what he said. Interest starts accruing or building at the beginning of each month, continues throughout the month. So when you make your mortgage payment, you're paying interest that has built up on the money borrowed during the past month. So again, rent, I pay for the first month before I move in. So I got a month paid before I even live there. Mortgage interest, when I make my January payment, I'm paying for the interest from December. I'm paying it backwards. Okay, so it's different. All right, so prepaid interest at the closing, right? So I'm going to close on the 15th of the month, right? I have to pay for the interest because my first payment, I have not paid a month's payment yet. So I can move in that day, but I don't make my first mortgage payment until like the first of the month. So I'm living there for like 2 weeks and I haven't paid anything for it yet. All right, so what you have to do at closing, you have to pay the amount of interest due to cover the time from closing to when the first payment is due. So you got to pay that back part. All right, for example, if you close on the 10th day of a 30-day month, you will need to prepay 20 days of interest at closing. So if I'm closing on the 10th and there's 30 days in the month, I got to pay for those extra days. Yeah, sorry, it's called prepaid interest. You're paying it. You will when you start making your payments, then you're always paying it for the month. Yeah, I know, sorry. We'll do some examples that'll explain all that. All right, and then transfer tax. It's a fee that's charged for the transfer of the title from the seller to the buyer. So they charge you to actually do the paperwork to change the title from the previous people to actually put it in your name so it's legal that you own it. So they charge you for everything. That makes sense though. You want to pay that one. You want to pay to have someone legally change that house to being in your name. Yes. All right, so how do you compute prepaid interest then? Yeah, I think yours is actually printed, isn't it? So I do want you to add something to this. Amount borrowed times the interest rate divided by 365. Why 365? The days. So prepaid interest, I'm right here, this parenthesis part, it is finding out how much interest you owe per day because I divided by 365. But this number that you get here, make a note, guys, because if you do this wrong, every time you do these questions, it's going to be wrong. Round this to the nearest cent. So round that to the nearest cent, because your calculator is going to have all those digits in there. Then take the rounded to the nearest cent and then multiply it by how many days it needs to be paid. If you look at your purple sheet, I actually have it on there. Yeah. So on the purple sheet, I actually wrote right underneath there. You may want to highlight that, circle it, star it, something, just to refresh your memories on that. Because I'll tell you right now, most students type that whole thing in times how many days to be paid, and then they write the answer down rounded. You got to round it first, then multiply it by how many days. Right? Because you want to know, like if I asked you for 1 day, you would round it to the nearest cent. And then you would multiply that by how many days you have to pay it. So make sure you round that to the nearest cent first. All right, so number 1, calculate the prepaid interest. If I'm borrowing $79,000, interest rate of 4.25%, and I'm closing on October 18th. Now, if you notice on your purple sheet, I put all the calendars on here. If you were wondering why, it's because I think a lot of you don't know how many days are in each month. Which is why I put that on there for you. So October has how many days? 31. So if I close on the 18th, how many days is it till the end of the month? 31 minus 18, which is 13 days. right? Because October has 31. I just subtracted the 18th because I closed. That's where I got 13 days. So to calculate prepaid interest, again, your formula is on your paper. I take the amount I borrowed, which was $79,000. I'm going to multiply that by my interest rate, so 0.0425. Divide that by 365. Bless you. I think so. All right, so 79,000 times 0.0425 divide by 365. So that gives me 9.20. Round that to the nearest cent. So that's $9.20 per day of interest. And I have to then multiply that by 13. So do not leave all those digits in your calculator, or it's going to be wrong. So I will have to pay $119.60. When I go to like sign my paperwork, get the keys to the house, I have to pay $119.60 just in the prepaid interest. So if you want to pay less in prepaid interest, when should you close? At the end of the month. Yeah, you close at the end of the month, you're going to pay less in prepaid interest. On Halloween. All right, so number 2, how much will be charged in prepaid interest on a $400,000 loan with an APR of 6% that was closed on December 14th? So again, guys, your formula sheet hopefully is your lifeline through all of these chapters, right? Prepaid interest, so my amount borrowed, $400,000. Multiply that by your interest rate, so 0.06. Divide by 365. So $65.75. And then we will multiply that by what? 17. Good. Because December has 31 days, subtract 14, so 17 days is how many days we have left. Because then it doesn't equate to the right number of days in a year for like the way the sun moves, and that's why there's leap years and all that. Kind of messes with your seasons. All right. So what do we know then about how much I borrow versus how much interest I pay? The more you borrow, what? The more interest you pay. Yeah, look at that. I have to pay over $1,100 in interest. Yay. At closing, come with a check. Write that out. That's probably, yeah, you probably can afford that then. All right, Leah and Josh are buying a $600,000 home. Woohoo! They're even richer. They have been approved for a 7.25, oh, that's a really high interest rate, mortgage. They made a 15% down payment and will be closing on September 6th. How much do they expect to pay in prepaid interest? Now, wait a minute. Down payment. Now, what does your formula say? What's the top number? Amount borrowed. Are they borrowing $600,000?
No, they're borrowing not.
Yes. I know. This is real life. So guys, we need to figure out their down payment. Because if a down payment is money that they are paying down, so they're not borrowing the full $600,000. Right? So it's going to be 600,000 times 0.15. 51,000?
Well, no. That, I'm saying this answer is to like.
Where did you get 51,000? This is why I don't trust students. 510,000.
Why are you jumping on really?
This is why I don't trust students' math. And that was Kurt. I trusted him. All right. So down payment, they said 15%. So you just multiply it by 15%. That is how much they paid. So how much did they actually borrow? Right? You subtract the 90,000. So they actually borrowed 510,000. So guys, here real quick before we finish this problem, because we're not done yet. On your formula sheet, everybody pull out your formula sheet. I see most of you do not have it out. I think I see 4 of them. Oh my gosh, I can take your formula sheet away.
No.
I mean, I didn't have to give you one. You can memorize all this. So guys, on your formula sheet where it says prepaid interest, you have some space over here to the side. Make a note, subtract down payment. Okay? So however you want to word it, subtract down payment from cost of house or whatever, like the amount borrowed, you know, subtract the down payment, whatever you want to like kind of make sure you remember that. Devin? 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 Hi, Devin. No, you weren't. Devin, I asked you to add something to your formula sheet. Adam, you need one, don't you? There you go. All right, so again, make a note on your formula sheet that amount borrowed, you have to subtract that down payment if you have one. Okay? All right, so we take the amount borrowed, 510,000, multiply by your interest rate, so 0.0725, divide by 365. So $101.30. And then multiply that by what? They were closing on the 6th. How many days are in September? There are 30. Minus 6 is 24. So again, do not leave all those digits in your calculator. I keep saying this, but you know what's going to happen when we do? They're all going to leave those digits in your calculator and you're going to get it wrong. I hope they do it right. All right, so they will have to bring $2,431.20 to closing to pay that prepaid interest. If they'd closed at the end of the month, they'd have paid a lot less in prepaid interest. All right, go ahead and try number 4 on your own. right, guys, double check what you have versus what I have. Okay. They mentioned a down payment. You got to figure out what that is and subtract it off the cost of the house. So 53,600 is what they actually borrowed. Multiply that by your percent, divide by 365. So it's $8.08. Make sure you round to the nearest cent. And then there'd be 19 days left, right? May is 31 days. 31 minus 12 is 19. So we multiply that. So 153.52. Isn't that so much better of an interest to pay than the one prior? Yeah. It's a lot cheaper house, though, too. It's still high. All right. So then, not only do you have to pay that prepaid interest, but we have to pay closing cost. Now, again, there are different types of loans. So some loans you can get where they will actually take your closing cost and they'll roll that right into your loan. So they'll just give you a loan for a little more than that to cover that, so you don't have to pay it at closing because they can get a little high. Okay, so it just depends on how you set up your loans. So closing cost, you take your cost of your home. Now, does it say the amount you borrowed or the cost of the home? Cost of the home. All right, and you multiply that by whatever the closing percent is. So if you look on here, underneath closing cost, I have on here ranges from 2 to 7%, and then it also has on here ignore down payment. Okay, so prepaid interest, we have to make sure you added that. You have to remember the down payment to take that off. Closing costs, it doesn't matter. It's just based on the price of your home. Okay, so Shannon was approved for a $340,000 mortgage. What range of cost might she expect to pay at closing? So normally it says it's between 2 and 7%. So we need to figure out what 2 and 7% is of the cost of her house. Okay, so 340,000 multiplied by 2%. So on the cheapest end it would be 6,800. And then on the most expensive end, 0.07. Up to 23,800. Depending on your bank, it varies on where those fall. Okay. Now, closing cost, that's including everything you have to bring at closing. So that's going to include your prepaid interest, your title fees. It's like all of those fees we talked about. That's all right there. It's all kind of in that together. Okay. So depending on the price of your house, depends on how much you pay at closing cost altogether. So number 2, Jason's closing on a $430,000 home. He made a 13% down payment and is borrowing the rest. What is the appropriate range of cost that he might expect to pay at closing? How do I find this? Ignore the down payment. Yeah. Closing cost, again, that's why I put it on here. Closing cost, you ignore the down payment because it's based on the price of the house. Prepaid interest, you have to take care of that. So 430,000, you will multiply by 2%, and then you will also take the 430,000 and multiply by 7%. No. I could. I just don't know anybody. So 8,600 to 30,100. When we bought our house in Waterville, we were able to take, there's different types of loans. We were able to take it where they actually took, they're called negative points, where they can change your interest rate a little bit, but then they give you so much of like the value of your house, and they put that towards your closing cost. So you can ask for a higher percentage rate, but not have to pay any of this.
Is it worth it?
Depends. Are you going to live in that house all 30 years? So you're going to pay it forever and ever and ever? It's not worth it. Because by the time, like, you're eventually going to be paying more than with that higher interest rate. I used to teach, last semester I taught a section in this chapter that did all about the points and found like kind of where's that break even point, and like, so if you want to know, I can teach you how to do that, but otherwise we're just not going to have time this year to do it. So if you want to know, I can teach it to you. Yes, I can teach it to you. All right, Becky was told that based on the price of her home, her approximate closing cost would range from $4,000 to $14,000. How much was the price of her home? Good, just divide it. Right, because normally you took the price of her home and you multiplied, right, to get the lower end. So instead of multiplying, you just divide. So $4,000 divided by 2%. It's a $200,000 house. Yep. Could I have also done that with the 14,000? I would have had to divide that one by 0.07. Yeah. You could try it with both just to make sure. You should get the same answer. You should get the same answer. All right, let's take a break. So, determine how much of a mortgage payment is applied to the principal and to the interest with a fixed rate. So, we've looked at, I think, one other table one other time where like I showed you like a payment, and what happens? Your very first payment that you make, how much of it actually goes to pay off the loan? Like not much, right? Yeah, when you make a payment, let's say I have a loan, I pay $1,000 a month for my loan. $1,000 does not come off of how much I borrowed, okay? A big chunk of that goes towards interest, and then a little bit of it takes off of the money that you actually owe, okay? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at how much actually comes off each month. So to do this, you will calculate the monthly mortgage payment, if it's not given to you. We know that formula. Calculate the monthly interest using the formula I equals PRT. Oh my gosh. Simple interest. All right. P stands for rate and time in years. All right. So, guys, if you take a look at your purple sheets, flip to the back side. I am just too nice to you guys.
Oh, she's so nice.
Too nice to you. All right, this is what is on here. So let me kind of talk through what all this is. So this is part of what's called an amortization table. When you take out a mortgage, they will actually give you all of the amortization tables, meaning every single payment you make for all 30 or 15 years, they will show you every payment, how much goes towards principal and how much goes towards interest. Okay, so what we're going to do is actually look and see how those work and where those come from. So whatever your beginning balance is for that month, monthly payment, just use your formula, which is on there. How much of it goes towards interest? You will use the I equals PRT. Notice the T. Why is it 1/12? It's just 1 month out of the year. So 1 out of the 12 months. So in this table, when you're doing this, hands to yourself, T is always going to be 1/12. Okay? How much goes towards principal? You take your monthly payment, MP was your monthly payment, and you subtract the interest, right? Because my monthly payment is either going to be interest or principal. So if I find out how much goes towards interest, then the rest of it, subtract that, is how much goes towards principal. If you have down payment, no, the beginning balance is how much you actually owe. So down payment's already taken out. If you make extra payments, right? Because what do we know about extra payments? If I make my regular monthly payment and I got an extra $500, I'm going to throw at my loan. Where does that $500 go? Straight to the principal. So if you have extra payments, you will, whatever this number is, add also whatever extra payment it is to it. All right, and then your ending balance. So at the end of that month now, how much do you owe? You take the beginning balance, subtract how much went towards principal. Does that make sense though? Okay, your monthly payments, either interest or principal. And then by the end of the month, the ending balance is take off how much you actually went towards the principal. All right, so we're going to do just a little bit today, and then we'll do a lot more with this tomorrow. So Tammy and Tom have been approved for a $300,000 15-year mortgage with an APR 5.75%. How much of their first monthly payment will go to principal and interest? So let's go ahead and figure out just 1 month's payment, their first payment, and how this works. So their beginning balance is what? $300,000. This is their very first payment, so they owe all of it. Monthly payment, we have to solve for it. Yeah, so again, on your purple sheet, you have your monthly payment formula right at the front. So we have to actually calculate what that monthly payment is. Again, please practice typing this in. Some of you are still struggling with the calculator. So please type it in, make sure that we're good with this. And some of you are, and some of you, for whatever reason, still stink at this. So please practice it. We should know how to do this by now. You were not actually the one that was coming to mind, Jordan. I will not call out who was coming to mind right now.
It wasn't me.
Hey guys, I don't care who it is right now. Just do it. Numerous people keep forgetting the -1 on the bottom. That drastically changes that answer. All right, so we should find a monthly payment, $2,491.23. That's a huge monthly payment. All right, how do you figure out how much goes towards interest? What do we do? Again, look at the back of your purple sheet. I equals PRT. It is. So I equals my principal, 300,000, my rate, 0.0575, and what's the time? 1/12, because we're looking at just 1 month. All right, so we should get interest, $1,437.50. Questions on the interest part? All right, how do you find how much goes towards principal? Again, if you're not sure, look at your sheet. It tells you right on here how to do that. Okay, you take your monthly payment and you subtract the towards principal. Right, so I take the $2491.23 minus $1437.50. So $1,053.73. Look at that. So I made my payment almost $2,500. Only a little over 1,000 of it went towards actually paying off the $300,000 I borrowed. This is why when we looked at how much you pay in interest over like 15, 30 years, that's why you pay so much interest. Because in the beginning, most of your payment goes towards interest. What about towards the end? Most of it goes towards principal at the end. Okay, it kind of shifts as the loan goes on. All right, and then my ending balance, how do I find that? Good. Yep, so to find that last part, you take your beginning balance, which was in this case 300,000, and subtract how much went towards principal. So 1,053.73. So $298,946.27. So when you get a mortgage, they will show you your tables for every payment for the entire life of that loan. So you'll be able to see every month how that changes. So should I make you guys do a full amortization table for a 15-year mortgage?
Yes.
Would it be hard?
Yes.
Not really. Would it be tedious? Yeah. Now, if I had asked you to do the next month, just real quick, let me just kind of ask this. If I asked you to do the next month, would the beginning balance be different? It would be the ending balance from before. Would the monthly payment change? No, your monthly payment's the same all the way through, right? But then you'd have to recalculate how much of that payment then goes towards interest, how much goes towards principal, and then ending balance again. Okay. Let's try one more, and then we'll call it good for today. Oh, now I got 2 lines. Celine and Don have been approved for a $110,000 30-year mortgage with APR 4.5%. Using the mortgage and interest formula, set up a 2-month amortization table. Okay. So this one has the payment number on it, payment number 1, payment number 2. So we know right away the beginning balance. It's 110,000. Monthly payment? We got to solve for that. After everything we've done, this is what's going to make you want to drop out? Really? Who puts a cherry on top of an ice cream sandwich? I don't know. We'll find out. All right, monthly payments, $557.35. Is that what you guys got? All right. Finding out how much goes towards interest. It's going to be I equals PRT, right? So I equals my principal, 110,000, times my rate, 0.045, time, it's going to be 1 out of 12 because I want just 1 month. What's wrong? I'm sorry. I guess at this point, I assume I don't need to slow down on the monthly payment formula because we do know how to do that, right? Sure. All right, questions so far? All right, next is towards principal. How do I find that? Subtract. I know, it's on your formula sheet too, right? So I just have to take monthly payment minus how much went towards interest. So $557.35 minus $412.50. So $144.85. Mm-hmm. So once you go home, be like, hey, Dad, let me show you how to do your job without the computer, Dad. Let me show you how this works. All right, so the ending balance. Ending balance, you're going to take your beginning balance minus how much went towards principal. So it's $109,855.15. So what about payment number 2? Beginning balance is what? Good. Beginning balance is where you ended last month. Guys, are you with me? Beginning balance is now where I ended at. I don't owe $110,000 anymore. Do I need to redo the formula? No. It's still the same interest rate. It's still a 30-year. Like this stayed the same. So this is $557.35. Now, there will be a time tomorrow that you will have to redo that monthly payment. What would make you redo it? What would change your monthly payment? Your interest rate. If you have an adjustable rate mortgage that could change depending on what like interest rates are doing in the country, right? So if you have one of those and it changes, they recalculate your monthly payment. So we'll look at those tomorrow. If it's fixed, it stays the same all the way through. Yes? Mm-hmm. So towards interest is going to change again. Why does it change though, Luke? Did you figure out why does it change? Yeah, the principal is no longer 110,000. The principal is now beginning balance here. So 109,855.15 times 0.045 times 1 over 12. But guys, I want you to actually see that. Luke is right. It changes because that principal every month gets lower. That's why less and less goes towards interest every month. It's not a huge difference right away, but you know, it is. What? Hmm. Now, I will say often that Luke is very smart. I do. I say he's smart. What do I say about him? He's lazy. He does not apply himself. All right. So figuring out interest, $411.96. So it's not a lot less, but you know, every month that will continuously get lower because your principal is lower every month. How much went towards principal? The rest. My monthly payment, that much of it went towards interest. Good. So 145.39. Guys, take a look, because what's going to happen is I'm going to ask you to do this like for your project where you have to do like 6 months worth or so. Yeah, I know. But what's going to happen is some people mess up math somewhere. You should notice if something happened, because as you go on, what happens to the amount towards interest? It gets lower and lower and lower, and the amount towards principal, it builds. It goes higher and higher and higher. Okay? If you don't see that pattern happening, you know you messed up somewhere. New ending balance. Take your beginning balance, the 109,855.15. Subtract off how much actually went to pay that off, the 145.39. So I now owe 109,709.76. Very, very slowly you were paying that off.